Okay, so for this part, I'm going to be looking at all the classes, and I'm gonna go over anything that I think was significant or something that I found interesting or something about it. Okay, so first, I think I want to go over the basic ones that don't require that much explanation. So, for example, for this one, no destroyed. This is the singleton that I first made, and it definitely works. However, I ended up not using this. As you can see, it says replaced by provided singleton. I ended up using the one given. Where is it? Platform, scene changer. Where is that? Right there. Alright, cool. Yeah, so basically, this does the same thing. Yeah, so this does work. I ended up changing it, and the main reason I changed it was for the platform manager. You can see it extends this one, and I figured, okay, might as well just use the one that you gave us, so that's what I did. And basically what singletons do, so I'm going to X out of this one. What singletons do is they create one instance of a class, or yeah, of a class. So basically if multiple objects are given the same script, multiple different objects are given the same script, there will only be one instance of that class, and that applies to a scene and different scenes, right? So basically, if more than one instance exists, then the other ones are just gonna be destroyed because there can only be one instance of a class, and that way these variables can be shared among different objects and all that. So that's what a singleton does. The next one I want to talk about is the camera, the two cameras. So this is just basically given, right? Okay, so let's see. This one is basically just making the only camera in the scene, the main camera, and then we just transform the position. That's basically just what that is. And this other one, this is setting the initial position. Because when you open the programming scene, it's not, unlike how we're used to seeing it. We're seeing it really close up. That way you can actually select the nodes. And so yeah, so this, when you do this, you're not going to see when you put the camera at this position, you're not going to see the entire platform. But yeah, that's all it does. It sets the initial position, the X, Y, and Z. And it's vector 3, not vector 2, because we're creating in a three-dimensional world, right? So it's not a 2D game, it's a 3D game. This is basically doing as the common saying. So basically, input get key, if you're pressing the left shift, if you're pressing the left shift, and if you're pressing the up arrow. I believe this is zooming in, zooming out. This one is not moving the camera. This one right here is rotating the camera. And that's basically, oh, okay. So we're gonna see on enable, on disable a lot. Okay. Basically, on enable is creating references, or it's registering events. And the reason why, because as you can see, can you call it a function? This event is declared. It's basically, you can think of it as being declared in the UI manager. This one as well, this one as well, this one as well. And basically, this is a consuming event. Actually, should we go ahead? Okay, yeah, let's go over here. So which one was that called? It's called build platform on click. Right here, so that's this one. See, build platform on click. So basically, the delegate is saying that an event exists. That's a fair way to say it, I think. And then this basically does the same thing. This one, when you create an event, you have to have both of them. So I guess in a way you can think of both of them as having declaring an event. So the delegate, that usually includes the parameters. The second one will never include parameters. This one is simply like the function, the event name. That's how people call it. Or how else can I put this? When you write this, you know what? Okay, renew. Okay, so basically a class will declare an event, which is basically like what this is doing. And then the reason why we're declaring this event is because it's going to be carried out in another class, right? And so as we can see, this one is going to be handled is a better word, handled by this script, which is a different class, right? And so right here, we're registering the event. Whenever you see a plus equals, it's not math. It's not adding two numbers together. It's basically registering an event. It's saying that, yeah, it's basically referencing this event that happens. And every single time that you see a plus equals or plus equals or an on enable, it's going to create this right here. This is basically, so after you reference the event, you need a function, right? You need a set of instructions that's going to be carried out after you reference the event, right? So after you reference this event, this is going to be carried out. And as we saw earlier, where's the UI manager? The build platform on click has a parameter of PCD, which is that we'll see later, but it's basically a class that has our M and delta space and the height, the random height, right? Let's put that back. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. And then basically after this gets carried out, we're gonna dereference it, right? Anything significant there? Yeah, so that's basically what this is. Yeah, okay. I think that was a good explanation. And we're going to go over it again and again and again because it's basically this. Events are used throughout the entire, all of the scripts. Cool. Okay. Sure, we can save that. Okay. So now we have the UI manager, which is handling all the user input, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 different events. As we said earlier, this is declaring an event, right? This is also declaring an event, and this text right here, the rightmost text, that's gonna be what you're gonna see in different scripts for like their on enable functions. Can you see? Okay. Then this is declaring another event. This is declaring another event, and notice how this one, unlike the other 3 events, this one doesn't have a parameter. Yeah, so that's possible, right? That an event doesn't have a parameter. All right, cool. So next we have this is the UI manager. So this is for the top panel, which I can't show you because I can only share one screen at a time. But basically, it's a text box. This one holds the text for our M by N. So in the game, at the very top panel, you'll see the dimensions for this platform is like 3 by 5. So that 3 by 5 part, that's what this is. This is going to allow us to change that event. So if we change the M and N values to like 5 by 16 or 9 by 14, then it can update it with this one, right? This one is for spacing. So again, if we change the spacing, we want the top panel to change the value as well, so the user knows. Yeah, so every time they update the value, they can be shown what that new value is, right? So next we have text platform y-axis range. This is changing the displayed text for the y-axis. Then we have input field. So throughout when we use these scripts, we need to be manipulating the variables, right? So that's basically what all these instructions do. They're manipulating these variables, and so to make it easier, and rather than doing get component and like every single time, we can just every single time that an object uses a script, we can just drag variables from the scene or from the world, right? From the designing world, and we could just drag it into the inspector panel, and that's an easier way to make sure that we're using the same instance, I guess you can say, of these objects. So input field. So basically, I don't know if you remember, but in the selection panel, right, where we're offering a value for M, a value for N, a value for spacing and all that, we can input an M in the input field, so that's basically what this is doing. We're giving it a name, that way we can manipulate it, right? So if we give a new value, we should be able to take in that value, and this is how we can do that. So we have an input for M, an input for N, we have a slider for the delta space, we have a slider for the range, and then we also have a drop-down menu for the color. And so basically by accessing these, we can access the values that these inputs bring. Okay, so next we have the selection box. So we have the text displays for the programming panel, right? So for the programming scene, it also has a selection panel. So this is going to allow us to change the node names. For example, like if we select node 1, node at index 1, comma 1, we can be able to display that to the user. And if we select node 5, comma 2, we can also display that. So that allows us to display that. And we also have position, and this one is height, I believe. Okay, so then we have selection boxes. So as we saw earlier, we have two selection boxes. We have the configuration box, and we also have the programming selection box in both scenes. However, if you can remember, only one of them would be visible, and it depends on what scene. So if it's the configuration scene, the configuration selection box will be shown, and if it's on the programming scene, then the program selection box will be shown. And that's how that happens. Okay, so on awake, so basically this is saying, okay, with the scene manager, we're gonna get the current scene, right? And so if the current scene is configuration, then we're gonna only make the configuration selection box visible, and then we're gonna make the program selection not hidden, right? But if on the other hand the current scene is programming, then we're gonna make the programming selection box visible and the configuration selection box hidden. So I use if else if because if the first one is true, I don't want to execute the second one, right? Cool. Alright, so again, on enable, on disable, this is referencing an event, or all of these three enable statements are referencing an event. And so as you can see, this event comes from Platform Manager, this event comes from Platform Manager, this one comes from Platform Data Node. And again, this isn't math, this is basically just saying it's referencing the event, that way we can use it, right? And as we said earlier, every time we reference event, so for example this one, we are going to declare what instructions happen at that event. So for example, this one is on Platform Manager changed. So around here, where is it? On Platform Manager change, right here. So right here, these are going to be the instructions carried out for this one, right? To handle this event. So that's an event handler basically. And then right here again, on Platform Manager update UI. So that's going to be this one. So these instructions are going to be executed when this event is called. And then same with this one. Oh, not this one. This one, right? So on update platform, which is this one. So these are the instructions that's going to happen when this event is triggered. And then again, after these events are done, we're going to dereference them. What is it? Yes, that shouldn't say referencing the event. That should say dereferencing. Okay, so now let's go event to see if there's anything interesting. So platform data node. Oh, actually, can we platform? Let's see. Okay, let's look at this one. On Platform Manager change. So this one is called after building the board in the Platform Manager, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Should we look at it in order? Okay. So basically, after the platform is built, this event will be triggered, right? And so a parameter for this event is going to be data. Actually, let's just check that out. Let's do platform on platform changed. Alright, let's go here. Okay, so this one, is this the only reference? Okay, so basically we can see here in the platform manager, this is the right now we're inside the function that's going to build the board. So basically right here, after building the entire board, this will be executed. So it's going to say if on platform manager change does not equal null. So this is basically saying, okay, if we have a consuming event, if we have an object that has a script that can consume this event, then we can carry out the next instruction. So if there is no consuming event that exists, then we can't execute it, right? So unfortunately, that we do have a consumer event, right, which is the one we were just looking at, right? So this is the consumer event. So it's going to say on platform manager, and it's going to pass configuration data. And again, configuration data is basically it contains your value for m, your value for n, your value for delta space, your value for height, and so that's what that means. And so then that gets passed to here, right? So now this object data contains all of that information. So this one is saying, okay, if data is not null, so meaning if it's containing some valuable data, we are going to execute the following, right? So it's going to say, okay, if the input for m, input platform m dimension. Okay, so this is basically saying that input box for m, if it's not null, right? So basically all of this is basically just updating the values inside those parameters, right? So right here, so it says if input platform m dimension is not equal null, then we're going to do input m dimension dot text. So basically we're changing the text for those input boxes to m, right? And this is just making it a string because it can't be, right now m is a number, so we want to make it into a string, that way it can be visible in the text box. And remember, this is not a text box, it's the input box, right? And you could think of it as changing the placeholder text, right? Cool, okay. And so all that is doing the same thing. It's going to put the value for n inside the input box. It's going to change the value for the slider for spacing to the delta space. Same with the height, it's going to change it. And this one is going to update the values for, right, so because text is split text platform, text. Remember, text is not used to get input, text is used to display text. So for this one, we're just changing what's being displayed. That's a great way to put it. And then on update camera position. So basically, again, this is saying if there is a consuming event, then we can carry out this, right? Because if there's a consuming event, that means there is an event that could handle this trigger, right? And if there's no event, then there's nothing to handle the event, right? So we have button clicked and also the slider value change. So first, let's go with button clicked. Okay, so if a button is clicked, so on click, we are going to basically call this function, which is button click, and this has a parameter button b. And so we're just going to, if you can imagine the Unity editor, we're just going to drag that button into this parameter box. It looks like a box in Unity, right? Then we're going to have a switch statement as the directions ask for. So in the switch statement, we are going to put b.name, right? So we're gonna find the name of the button, and the way I can describe that is when you create a new button, for example, in Unity, the default name is like button, like button -1 or button copy of button 1, I think. So this is basically saying the name. So we need every single button to have a different name if we want to use it like this. So if the button name is button build platform, then we're going to carry out this. If the button name is this, then we're going to carry out these instructions. Okay, so then this is another event, right? So this is basically saying, okay, if there's a consumer event that can handle this trigger, then we're going to execute the following instructions. Unfortunately, in one of these classes, I think it's the platform manager. Yeah, it should be the platform manager. In the platform manager, basically, yeah, if there's a consumer event if there's a consumer event that can handle it, then let's carry out these instructions. Okay, so for the first one, it creates a PCD, which is again an object that holds an object with the properties value for m, value for n, value for delta space, value for height. So we're going to create a new object, and like, oh, right here, the dot m, the dot n, those are the properties, right? So we're essentially giving these properties for this specific instance. We're giving them values, right? So now the value for m, which is a property of PCD of this instance of PCD, is going to have this value, right? So after the object has the value for all these properties, we are going to pass it on to build platform on clicked, which is handled by somewhere else, right? So PCD, it's basically just passing the object that we just made. And so then this is gonna, wait, hold on. This is going to be executed. I think it's in here. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So after we call this, we're going to pass PCD. This function in this event will be handled in Platform Manager. So this event is going to be registered there, and then build platform on clicked is right here. So this is going to be executed, and again, this is the instance. This is PCD is basically that object that we just made. And so after all that is said and done, the garbage collector just collects this, and then it's never going to be seen again, right? Okay, so right here, we're going to set, so this is the event handling situation. So basically we have configuration data, which is basically just another instance of platform configuration data. It's going to basically contain all the values in PCD and put it into here. Then we're going to build a platform, which is a function in this. Yeah, if you scroll all the way down, it's a function in this. Actually, we can scroll down. Yeah, so basically, first, in build platform, to build a platform, we're going to destroy the current platform just in case there is one. So if there is none, nothing's going to happen. So then we're going to set a new platform node, right, which is basically our platform, and it's going to be m by n. And configuration data is going to be a global variable, which is why it's not like declared or initialized here, right? So it's a global variable. Space x and space z are also global variables, and so this is basically just creating a platform. And then at the very end, we already went over that. That this is going to happen. It's going to update the display, what's being displayed. We saw that earlier. And then let's go back to once that's done once the event is handled, right? Not this one. This is the event handling. All right. Then it's gonna after the platform is built, it's just gonna set this, and old m and old n are basically global variables. And then after all that is handled, we come back to here. Cool. Okay. So then we have button platform. This is basically the same idea we just went over here. If there is a consumer event that can handle this trigger, it's going to be executed. And this is on my program data. I believe this is on platform data node in that script. Okay, so then we have slider value change. So this is for the sliders that we saw earlier, right? So this is for the slider to change the delta space, the slider to change the y-axis, or like how high it's going to go, and there's also the height for which we didn't see, but this is the height for the platform data node. It's for the programming scene. So this is basically saying, okay, if there's a change in the slider, what's the name of the slider, that's what the parameter is, and then what it's going to say, we're going to find the name of that slider. So which of these three sliders is it? If it's the first one, then we're going to change the values of the display for delta space, right? And if we're changing the value for the slider for that y-axis, for the y displacement, then we're going to change the text that's being displayed for the y-axis. And if we're changing the value for the node height in the programming scene, then this is going to be executed. And again, whenever every single time you see this does not equal null, this is just basically saying if there is a consuming event if there's a consuming event that can handle what the event that was just triggered, then let's let that consuming event handle that situation. And if there isn't a consuming event, then there's nothing we can do about that. And then this is a scene. This is from 2A. This is actually the inspiration for the awake right here. That's basically how we toggled it, and I think that's that. Let's put it down to scene changes. Okay, so for scene changes, I use an additional script. I did not put this in my user interface with the rest of the buttons. So basically, how I did that, I have a scene changer. So basically, when a button is clicked, I'm gonna call this. I'm gonna call this script, and then I'm gonna call this function. So on click, in addition to this function being called, I'm going to provide a parameter. I have to manually put this in, so it's not like the other one where I can just drag a button in as a parameter. So for this one, I actually did typed in configuration, programming, and a simulation, and it's gonna take the string, it's gonna put it in here, and this scene manager, which is allowed by this one right here, it's just going to load the new scene. And then for exit, again, this is just quits the Unity editor. You also might see application.quit, and basically what that looks like right now, this Unity only exists in our editor. It's not a .exe file. And application quit is for like right here at the very top when you want to close a window. So that's what that is for. But since we don't want to close a window, we only want to stop the Unity editor. This is what we're going to use. Cool. Okay. And then this is our platform configuration data. So for this one, rather than height, I use random height like the example that you showed. I also removed this one because I guess the platform manager, I think one of those two handles the color. Oh no, it's platform data node. Okay. And then also, following the lecture, I added this equals 16 equals 9, and that's what that looks like. Okay. So then we have platform manager, and we're almost hitting 30 minutes, so I have to wrap this up. All the coded ones are basically things I have to remove from 2A. Okay, here, this is interesting. So platform manager, unlike the other ones, which inherit mono behavior, this one inherits platform generic singleton, which is that one that you gave us. And again, that just basically makes, as you can recall, a singleton makes only one instance of a class available throughout the entire scene and throughout different scenes. Throughout different scenes. And again, if another instance of a class is made, then it's simply going to be destroyed. So platform manager inherits that, which allows us to use the values in different scenes. Okay, so this is basically rewritten in the UI interface, right? Because we had to move things around, and what was that word? refactor. Okay, so then we have two events again. So this is the delegate. We always put the parameters in delegates, never on the second one. So yeah, so we have two events. So rather than this one, rather than using booleans, we're just gonna use this. So game object base pref, that was originally this one right here. So this is basically just the node that we use to build the platform. Then we have old m and old n. So interestingly enough, this is going to be the one that it's basically the value of m and n that's being passed throughout different scenes. And so we're going to obviously update old m and old n every single time we update m and n, right? So then we have platform configuration data. That's basically this one, but remodeled, I guess. We're creating new, so basically we're creating a new instance of it. So as you can see right here, it's initialized and build platform on click. So there's no need to initialize it on our part. It's going to be initialized, I think, either in the update function or probably in the save function. This one as well, that one's initialized. Game object platform node. So platform nodes are just basically the platform, and game object is basically the array that's going to hold all our platform nodes. Back to the different nodes. And then we have simulate test and program. We're going to set that equal to false. Game object current selection equals null. Okay, so now we have enable and undisable. So again, enable are register events. That's not math. Plus, it's just saying that we're going to use this event that's in UI Manager, and we're going to define it, which is right here. Build platform and click, we already went over that. And again, on disable is just dereferencing that event. We already talked about this earlier. So this one is just a scene loader. We're going to have a scene and then load scene mode, and so on. And then this one is going to write to the file in our Unity project, in a file called write lines.txt. There's nothing in our start, okay, and so in our update function, it's going to ask us if we want to quit with the code Q. It's going to say, okay, if the platform doesn't exist, that's what's going to happen. And this is saying if program is checked, which, as we saw earlier, it's not checked. And if it is checked, that means we're in the programming scene, and that means that you can pick a node. This is what this whole thing is saying. Pick a node, and then if you pick that node, you can choose the height, and that's what raycast is. Raycast is every time you want to shoot a ray from the camera, you can think of it, to something in the 3D scene, because as we saw in the OpenGL, it's a process to shoot. It's a process. Basically, it doesn't directly translate from what you click to what you want to click in a digital environment. Because what you're clicking, for example, like right here, what you're clicking, it might be hitting like a bunch of different points in a digital world. That doesn't make sense, but hopefully you get the idea. That's what that does. This just destroys the platform before we create again, just in case, to make sure that there's no errors. This just builds the platform, and that looks good. Okay, so now we're 34 minutes. I'm not sure if I can upload a file more than 27 minutes. Can I? This is basically the same thing. We have events that are going to be handled. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. Like even this, that's also in Platform Manager, and so then that's what my code looks like.